Another year has come and gone. Are you wondering what the future holds? Are you struggling with the decision about love, money, your career, your family? StarsPsychics.com, that's stars with a Z, has the answers you desire. StarsPsychics.com is the best and brightest advisor site on the internet, staffed by top-rated, professional, fully tested, and certified advisors. This is the real deal. At StarsPsychics.com, you create your own personal account, and you pick your advisor by reading their extensive bios. Then you decide on a budget that you are comfortable with. Your pathway to a clearer and brighter future is just a few clicks away. No gimmicks, no bait and switch. StarPsychics.com has daily blogs and lots of links to help you develop your own intuition. Log on now. That's StarPsychics.com. Remember, stars with a Z. And here's the best part. They're available 24/7. StarPsychics.com. Remember, stars with a Z. You must be 18 years or older. Your future awaits.
Hello, everybody. This is Natalie, also known as Starscast, for which I'm known mostly on the internet. But I don't know, maybe Natalie too. But anyways, we have another great show. You're just going to love listening to this lady. We've already chatted a little bit. And but first I'm going to tell you what's going on with Stars Psychics, which is my site that's just turned 12 years old. We're changing the rates to $1.99 per minute. All readings are going to be $1.99, so there'll be packages in the account. And for those who have had existing rates for 12 years, your rates will remain the same. I don't change those for you. We have, we have a newsletter. I have to announce that I talked with my attorney yesterday about my Stars Psychics, Your Future Awaits. I have that trademark, or it is registered. Now I went out to get my tarot cards registered. We're in the last phase of that. Talked with her yesterday, so that should be going through. So soon, well, for sure, you'll see on my name R instead of a TM. That's really special because that means it's protected throughout the United States, not across, not over in another country. I'd have to do another trademark search on that. I don't think anybody else has got it. But the cards, I'm really excited for the cards because I helped to develop those. I had a gal who did the illustrations, and I worked with her. She was in Spain, and it took us 2 years to get the right images, and then I had help with the little instruction booklet and my logo on the back and the card box, and I have a company just waiting to hear from me, but I didn't want to print anything, of course, until they had the R, the registered insignia, if you want to call it. It really means something. It means that nobody can take them. Nobody can copy them, and nobody can use Star Psychics, Your Future Awaits. So I'm kind of excited about that. That has taken a year and a half to get that all done. You wouldn't think so, but it does because it goes to this examiner and that examiner, and they really critique things. That's why you have to have a trademark attorney because they know the rules and how to get things through. And so I'm hoping they accept our final paperwork and stuff that we have. And then, of course, I want to talk to you about Mystic Living Today. Mystic Living Today will be 25 years old in January. And I'm hoping it should work out that we'll be converting it to a flip magazine where you'll see the cover and then you'll click on it and it'll turn the page for you. It'll have table of contents, a feature, more like a magazine. I'm excited about that because that opens other doors for me as far as the owner. And, yes, I'm the only owner. I started it 25 years ago, and I tell people that, and they think, oh, my God, what was wrong with you? Well, I had 4 girls that came to my house and said, you have to do an e-zine, which is a magazine online. I had no clue what it was, how to do it, nothing. And here I am 25 years later still doing it, but I really love it. That's another thing that I love. And I was telling my guests, like doing the radio show, anything where I can interact with people all over the world, oh, who would not want to do that? I mean, tell me. I have a great job. And so that's going to be going. We're going to have ads. You'll be able to get a quarter ad, half-page ad, full-page ad. I already have things lined up from one of he's my most favorite wildlife photographer. And I've got all of his stuff ready to go. And he sends me actual pictures, not copies, not Photoshop, pictures. And I asked him the first time I had him in my magazine, I said, why do you do that? He said, well, I trust you. What are you going to do with them? He said, you love animals, and of course I do, and that's a whole other story. But we're going to do that, and so I'm excited about that. You have to keep changing things, and that's the way of the world. And I know it's tough out there. It really, really is. I do know, and it's a sad state that we're in right now. I mean, but there are beautiful things. There are beautiful things out there that we can value and love, and you have to just know that it's going to be okay. It really is. The pendulum always swings back. So without further ado, and she's probably listening to me thinking, my goodness, she talks a lot, I'm going to bring my guest on. Now, she is a writer, an experienced yoga teacher. Wait till we talk to her about that. She's a healer and a spiritual mentor. And she has a book coming out, I believe, if I'm correct, it's December 1st, and we're going to get to that when I bring her on. Anyways, I want to bring my guest on. Her name is Nicole Goott. Is that right, Nicole? Did I say it right?
It's Nicole Goot. Hi, Natalie.
Good. I'd like to say it like you do. Well, she was born and raised in Johannesburg, South Africa. So you wait till you hear her, how she talks. It's just wonderful. I'm so excited. Now, what I want to know, Nicole, how did you get started? Were you a young girl, like in high school? How did you get interested into yoga, writing, becoming a healer? All of this. We want some background because, the people that are out there that listen today or listen, because this is recorded and I put it out there, they're going to be saying, well, I want to do this. How do I get started? So I always begin with the background of my authors. And so tell us, how did you get started with all this?
Sure. It's a great question. I think everybody's path in life is unique. We all have a life purpose, and our path is different. For me, it goes back to childhood. If you're asking the question about, how did I sort of get on this path and how did I end up writing a book? And, I always knew that I was watching my thought stream. I was always interested in, questions about reality and where things come from. Where do we come from? How do things work? And I became interested in, I'll call it spirituality, or my own spirituality and my own inner discovery. It's sort of in my teenage years. I practiced martial arts to start off with when I was 12. I was very enamored with Bruce Lee, and I sort of imagined myself being a female version of that. And I was exposed to ideas of energy or chi through martial arts, and that expanded into me eventually discovering yoga through Ayurveda and Hatha yoga. And that just opened the door to really the world of different points of view, different ways of looking at a cosmic framework. How does the universe unfold, and answering those questions. And right about the time, I was in my mid-20s, I graduated university, and I was actually working in finance. And it really wasn't until I moved to the United States and sort of around the age of 30 that I would say I stepped onto my path. I followed my dharma, my life path, my life purpose, where I studied yoga more intensively and became a yoga teacher and studied healing modalities like Thai yoga, massage. I spent almost a year in Thailand, where I took what I call my life sabbatical, but I was really studying the healing system of Thai massage, Thai body work, and other modalities that involve working with energy and working with somatic experiences. And, eventually I found that there was always a need to go beyond the body. And that really led me to working with more of the subtle energy and the subtle bodies, which is one of the things I talk about in my book, Yoga and the Five Elements, where, we have these higher levels of being. And when we meet those higher levels of being, when we meet those needs and we unfold those different levels of our consciousness, all of that energy and that opening flows down through the lower levels, which is to the physical body. So coming to answer your question about the book, how did I come to writing a book? Well, it sort of flowed out of me. I had all of this in me, and I think it wrote itself in some ways. I'd never really sat down to kind of consciously write the book, but it just was there. I had been teaching sort of different elements of what I've written about in different pieces, and eventually that formed the basis of this book that is now coming out into the world.
Well, I'm going to go back to your yoga, and I was telling you about myself. I'm trying to think how old I was. I was young, pretty young. Not that I'm super old, but I'm a lot older. But anyways, we had some classes offered at the high school. And two of my friends said, shall we try this? Well, I was game to learn something new always, but I didn't really know what it was. All I knew is we had to have the proper attire, and we had to have a mat, and we all went to the class. And so the instructor, now mind you, she was an instructor, but we didn't think about her credentials or anything. I mean, I was just excited to take it. So I don't think it was until the second or the third week she talked about, the history and, did a lot of that kind of stuff with us. Then she showed us what to do. And it was the Hatha yoga that I took. And that was the only thing that was offered. Now, I'm going to ask you what's the difference. But this class that we were in, I had one friend on one side, one friend on the other side, right? These girls, I was like 100 pounds, 5'2", and they were larger girls, just bigger girls. Not that they were heavy, they were just larger. And so they were making fun of me. Look at you, you're so tiny on that mat. Well, the instructor started talking. The room was just totally quiet. She started talking. And I don't remember if she had any music in the background or not. All I remember is that I listened to her voice. Well, what happened to me, Nicole, is I went into a level. I had never done this before. It was my breathing that everybody was noticing in the room because it was so quiet, and all they could hear was me. And I could hear things, and you'll explain this to me. I could hear things going on around me, like little whispers, but it didn't matter to me. I was like in a zone, you could call it, but I called it a level. I was in a level, and so she let me be like that for a long time. Not a real long time, not hours, but maybe 10 minutes or so. And then she walked up to me. I heard her, and she tapped me on my shoulder, and I opened my eyes, and she said, do you know what just happened? And I said, well, I don't know, but I was really liking it a lot. I said, because I was so calm and at peace, and my outside surroundings did not matter to me. I mean, she said, well, she asked me to explain what it was, what it felt like. And she said to me, she says, I've only had one other student do this. And she says, and I'm wondering why you. And I said, well, I wanted to take this. And I just feel, and I think it was a form of meditation at the same time for me. I mean, that's how I learned how to do meditation. I can do that really easy. And she just, all these women, they were all women, I think, in the class. They're all turning around and looking at me like, oh, God, is she weird? But she looked at them and she said, this is how it's supposed to be. She said, you see, she heard everything, but it didn't matter to her. She was in that level, as she calls it. So can you explain that to the audience? What happened to me? And now there's all kinds of yoga, I know, but this is the one that I took. So I would like you to explain the differences between them also. But what happened to me? Do you know? What if I was in one of your classes? What would you think?
Well, based on what you've described, the way I would put it in in my terms, would be we have 5 senses, right? These 5 outer senses. And when we drop into a deeper state of meditation or a deeper state of mindful awareness, where we are able to, I'll call it, shut off those outer senses or turn those sensory doorways inward, and we open up to our inner senses, we're not as involved as we normally are in what's called waking consciousness with our outer sense perception. And instead, we're turned inward and our inner senses come online, so to speak, and we're aware of a different level of perception. So normally, we're all involved in day-to-day waking consciousness where we're not necessarily as aware of non-physical reality. But when we drop into a deeper state of a kind of mindful meditative awareness, we're both in a waking conscious experience. So you weren't asleep, it sounds like,
right,
but you were aware of things at a different level. So I would call that waking consciousness plus a kind of inner sense perception. And some of the deeper teachings of yoga talk about, as you prepare the body and through breathing practices, which opens the channels and the energy to flow, so that's prana, for example, and you're closing the sensory doorways that I'm talking about through the 5 senses, right? So your physical eyes, etc., and your outer hearing, and turning that inward and awakening that inner sense perception, we can drop into a state that what I call body asleep, mind awake, right? So we're in this very relaxed, deep meditative state of awareness without being engaged in the outer sensory world. And just as in meditation, in beginning meditation, where we learn to focus on breathing and not becoming engaged in our thought processes, not being involved in the sort of what's commonly called the monkey mind, instead being able to observe those fluctuations, to observe the fluctuating thoughts or emotions as they may arise, and instead be in a state of observation, witnessing, and not being even engaged necessarily in our awareness of the body. So it sounds to me like you had a kind of meditative absorption experience. And absorption in Sanskrit would be a samadhi. So samadhi is not just I think the mistake that can be made, and it's often a kind of an obstacle in development, is thinking that that's the end, that's what you are meant to achieve, that's the only thing that you'll ever experience. But it's really just one kind of absorptive meditative experience that you can experience, because all states of consciousness are openings to deeper and deeper levels of being, and deeper levels of being absorbed in kind of non-physical experience, non-physical reality, which I think of as being closer and closer to the source of oneself and the source of all being, however one relates to what that source energy is.
As I'm thinking while you're talking, I'm sure she told us how she wanted us to breathe, I'm sure, but everybody else had more difficulty than I did. I just remember it was wonderful. I loved it. And after class, she came to me and she said, I hope you can do this again. And I said, well, I don't even know how I did it. I said, I would like to, but she taught us how to breathe. And I think I slowed it down enough. My friends had trouble. They couldn't do it. They could not be where I was in that whole state. They just couldn't do it. And, I don't know why, but I felt really wonderful with it. I felt that I was given an opportunity to achieve something that I didn't even know existed. I had no idea. No clue.
Yeah.
It was just, we saw a picture of somebody sitting in the yoga position, and Lotus. I could do that, and I thought it would be great. You know, we had our leotards on. It was wonderful. I think we took I think we took 2 sessions, which would have been 12 weeks. And but then nothing else was offered. This was like one. It wasn't class number, session 2. This was still one that we took for a really long time. But, you know, part of it, too, was her voice. She had that voice that calmed you immediately. I remember it because I felt calm right away as soon as I was listening to her. And my 2 friends, I mean, I don't think they were paying that much attention, but I was. It really affected me. So, you know, you brought it back to me when I found out what you do, and I thought, oh, my gosh, I got to talk to her about this one. Now, there are different kinds of yoga. Now, explain what is the difference, and does it really matter?
I would say primarily no, it doesn't matter. In terms of what they are, the way I would answer the question is if we take what yoga means, and yoga is a Sanskrit word, and it's often translated as to yoke or bind or unite something. And the way I would translate that is to uniting all the levels of your being. So we're more than a physical body. We are a physical body and subtle bodies or subtle energy. And when we are able to come into deeper alignment with ourselves and unite all these levels of being, because we're multidimensional, we're coming into that experience of union with ourselves, because we're open to all these other levels of our being. And as we come into deeper union with ourselves, we also come into deeper union with all of consciousness. And in that union, in that coming into alignment, really what we're experiencing is deeper and deeper levels of inner peace. And so when we are able to step outside of our habitual human ego tendencies to respond to our experiences, which keep us sort of bound in what we like and what we don't like, which leads to dissatisfaction and unhappiness.
Right, and judgment.
When we can step outside of those, judgment, exactly. When we can step out of that habitual mode of bonding to and experiencing reality and ourselves, we come into this kind of inner peace and inner harmony. And that's when that's that alignment with all those levels of being. And so that's how I think of yoga, and that's what I write about. Now, for most people, I think in the West in particular, most people experience yoga as a physical practice, and that's really only one aspect of what yoga is accessing that experience of inner peace, which sounds like you had a kind of experience like that meditative absorption that you were describing to me. And it so happened that you could enter that through the body, because through the practice, a postural practice of yoga, you were able to settle the body and settle the mind. And so when body and mind and breath are in sync, all those sort of frazzled parts become more quiet. And so we're able to tap into that natural, radiant, peaceful energy and state of consciousness that's within us. So in terms of differences, the outer forms, I think, are just different expressions based on different teachers who have brought yoga to the world and to the West and how it's evolved. And so those outer forms are really just outer expressions of kind of a root system, and they just express yoga in different ways. And they'll appeal to different people in different ways and, different capacities.
Yeah, well, it makes a lot of sense. Now, as far as when you take your first class, okay, we had to sit in a certain way, and we had to listen to her voice. she just had a great voice. I mean, I couldn't do it because my voice rises and lowers. It's like I can read a book really well to somebody, but if I would have to keep that, it's not even a monotone. You know what I'm saying? You know, because you know. Because you know. I know you know, Nicole. But she just was perfect for it. Now, nobody else did what I did. There was probably 20 of us. So I was kind of like her favorite in a sense because she saw something with me that she'd been trying to reach with others, and they couldn't do it. They couldn't understand it. So she told me, you know, she said, I want you to talk at the next class and tell them how you felt. Well, I did. It was easy. You know, I just sat and quieted my mind, listened to her voice, but it was her voice. It was almost like mesmerizing, as I recall. Now, this was many years ago. And I just loved that feeling. Have I had it again? No. I don't think. I don't know. I can meditate, and I have my conversations with God every morning. Sometimes they're dissertations and not conversations, but I can do that. And everything around me, I don't even know what's going on. I'm just totally focused. So maybe that's why I was able to do that, so that later on I could do something else. I don't know. I never took another class. It was never offered. But I just think it's just a great way to become in tune. And if those listeners out there, if you can take a class, but it's got to be the right teacher. He has to have the right voice, I should say, because that's so important. You wouldn't want to take one from me because my energy level is really high, and so I'd probably be lifting you up out of your floor mats because of the energy. But you have to have I think you have to have the right teacher, you know. And it's fun. They used to give classes at school like that, at night classes. They don't do that anymore, I don't think. I don't know. But I was in Detroit, where I was born and raised. And so they had a lot of that kind of stuff going on, which was kind of great because the classes weren't very expensive, but you could get exposure to all these really neat things. Now, let's talk about, I have some questions here. Let me see if we've already talked about it. Oh, we talked about that. Gosh, I didn't know I talked about some of these things already. Oh, what is the best approach to self-development?
That's a big question.
Yes. And you don't have to go in depth. Part of, I think, the best approach is to be open. You have to be open. To self-development is learning for self, and you have to be open to accept what's being said to you, and you know you take what you're getting, and then you can push the other to the side if it's not really what you want to hear. But how would you answer that? Now that I gave you my answer.
It's a great question. Yeah, I think it's a great question, Natalie, and I think the first thing you said about being open. Self-development is all about opening to yourself, and that there's a deep desire and a deep willingness to know yourself more deeply and to continue to grow. And so the second thing I would say is, you know, I believe that we live in a universe that's based on the principle of learning and growth. And so anytime we are more open and opening to and receptive to the lessons that we're learning, you know, the path of growth opens up with a lot more ease and a lot less frustration. So I think that would be the second thing I would say to them. And the third I would say is every path is different. So how anybody approaches self-development is going to be unique to them. And there are lots of different ways to approach it through lots of different wisdom traditions, spiritual traditions, different worldviews. But the most important thing in whatever the form is that you approach in terms of unfolding your own self-development is to really use your own discernment. And in using your own discernment is to listen to your own inner authority. So what I mean by that is we all have an inner teacher and an inner wisdom. Sometimes I call it like a GPS, the guidance of the soul. And when we're tuned into that, when we're deeply listening to that inner wisdom and that inner discernment, then we're approaching things with a lot more clarity, less swayed by outer or external influences. No one can ever tell someone else what's right for them, because everybody's path is unique. Everybody's path that they need to follow is set for them by the soul, and so however you approach that is going to be unique to you. So just to reiterate, is make sure that you're tapping into your own discernment.
Well, I mean, that's good advice and a great opinion of what is your self-development. How do you approach it? What do you do? I like just being open. Sometimes, I notice for myself, and I can use myself as an example, is that talking to people that I've never met, like yourself, brand new, starting a conversation and being able to talk, 45, 50 minutes, whatever, to me is I'm being very open. I have to be be able to. But the thing of it is, for me, is that, and I can only use myself as an example, is that I learn so much. And by doing this for so many years, and I should really do more of just that sitting technique for yoga than I do, and I really don't touch on it enough, and I really should, because I think it's really important, because it's a calming state for you. It'll keep you calm. You won't be jumpy. You don't have the phone going. You don't have your cell phone and the internet and all of that. And, when I think about what I did back then and what I'm doing now, it was so different, and you'll attest to this. Your life is wrapped around looking at a cell phone, and all this digital world, when a lot of your time should be more focused on yourself and opening up your channels and learning. I look up everything. Yes, I do on the internet, but I get attached to it, and I don't really like it. So sometimes I just have to put it in another room, and somebody will say, well, I called you or I sent you a text. Well, I didn't get it because it was not near me. But I like to do that, and I think people should do that more often. I think that they would have a better understanding of themselves, and they could use yoga, and they could meditate, and just open up these channels that are all available to everybody. I was talking to somebody else about how things have changed, and in a way it's good. Computers, and my first computer was an Apple, and yes, it was great, but I think a lot of it's become a monster. I think that the digital world is just, we need to talk more to people. That's why doing the show, I'm talking to you. We're not texting each other. You know what I'm saying? And less of that is less is more, and it's true with that. But now I have to mention your site here also. Then I want to talk about your book. Her site is, and it's just like her name. It's NicoleGoott.com. Now, do they call you Nikki? It says Meet Nikki.
Yeah,
or is it Nietzsche?
Most people do, Nikki. Most people refer to me as Nikki. I have a number of nicknames, but invariably, my friends call me Nikki. So, yeah, you're welcome to call me Nikki as opposed to Nicole.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about her book. Now, the book is called Yoga and the 5 Elements, Spiritual Wisdom for Everyday Living. Now, how did you decide you were going to write a book, period? I always ask my authors that because, everybody says, oh, you've got a book in you. Well, I have a fairy tale in my head, and I've told people this 100 times. But I can't, it's awesome that somebody can sit down and write a book, and people say, well, sometimes I channel it. Sometimes it's just like automatic writing, and somebody said, well, just take pen and paper or at your computer on Word and type away. But it's not that simple. So how did this come about? Did you just decide one day, I've got to write this book? or did it come to you? Tell everybody how this particular book. Of course, yoga is your area of expertise, so I would understand that. But how did it come to be?
It really started during the first few months, I think, of the pandemic in 2020. Before that, I had been teaching and writing different aspects of what I've written in the book. And like many people, I think, who found that through that first, in particular, those first few months in that first year, it created an opportunity for me to write the book. Now, I wasn't specifically thinking about it. It wasn't certainly a conscious decision, I'm going to sit down and write this book. But through the process of kind of being in a more hibernating state, if you will, because, with the pandemic, everybody was inside with lockdown. Yeah. I just found myself, I think, sitting and writing more. And through that process, this book just wanted to come out. The content was there, the ideas were there, and it just started to flow out of me. And once I was in the process, then I started to realize I was writing. Now, that was an unfolding that happened over a period of many, many months. I think the seeds, though, were there from an early time. I mean, I used to keep a diary as a kid. And in high school, I used to love creative writing. And I had a teacher at the end of my high school education who encouraged me to keep writing. And through the years of teaching, I've always maintained some form of a newsletter and a blog, but never really this kind of conscious idea of, yes, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write a book and become an author. I think it just naturally evolved, and it's opened up so much for me once I stepped into what was unfolding, which was writing this book and becoming an author and being able to use the form of having a book out in the world as a way to reach more people with a message of what I think the book is about, in essence, is finding inner peace for yourself, and through that inner peace, inner harmony and outer harmony. So that's how I came to the book. It wrote itself through me in a way.
Well, yeah, and that makes perfectly good sense, because a lot of people that I have had on my show did their writing through the pandemic because their life had changed. They were home more. They were with self a lot. And it turned out to be kind of good for a lot of people, because look at all the beautiful stuff that came out of it. I mean, we can say, oh, it was awful. Yes, it was. I mean, a lot of people died, and yes, it was horrible. But then there's people like yourself who have enlightened the world with your work. Otherwise, we would not have known about it. Now, so I congratulate you. I'm trying to think what happened. What did I do? I see. I just did my everyday computer stuff because that's what I do. And actually, my one business did very well. Sure. Pardon me? What?
I bet you kept your show going, which is reaching people.
I kept my show going,
people.
Yes, because that was easy, of course, because you're just on the phone. And but the other business, it went pretty well, and it wasn't because people were home and they could spend money, because things were shutting down, people were losing their jobs. I don't know what it was. Maybe the seekers were seeking. I don't know. But that's a whole other story, because that's really changed. But for me, I just kept doing, and I kept my magazine going, of course. So nothing really stopped for me. I stopped going to the grocery stores. You know, I have a son and daughter-in-law and granddaughter don't live far from me. And there for a while, my son and I would go. We would wear our masks in the store. And then my son said to me, you know, Mom, I think maybe, and then Instacart came into being. How about I just get your groceries and I'll put them, because he was exposed to more people. I was not. And he was so afraid of me getting it and getting sick and really sick. So we did that for a while, but I was so used to being home, that it didn't faze me that much. And a lot of people, though, it did. I mean, they probably went basically cuckoo because all they could do is watch TV, listen to the radio, play on their telephones, on their cell phones rather, and it could be very lonely for a lot of people. But I'd like to believe a lot of talents came out by being by themselves. Like for you, you decided this book just came into being, and I'm sure you were guided. Our whole life is guided. I mean, if I think about how I got here, I can't even tell you how I got here. I can't even, because I worked for America Online, and I got that experience. Tennis was my background. I worked in 2 big clubs, and I did a lot of service. I'm of service. That's what I do. And that's what I've always, never be rich. No, and that's not important, but I am of service, and I really love doing that because I get benefits perhaps that I don't even see, like meeting beautiful people like yourself and having them say they want to be on my show. They get introduced to me by a publicist, and off we go. There are very few that I deny having on my show. I don't think I've ever said that I didn't, unless it's about the Bible or about politics. I don't touch any of that. I just feel that's a personal thing, and I don't want to get anybody riled up on the air. Maybe wants to stand on their podium. No, it needs to be this way. Well, I know right away because I know the publicists. I've been dealing with them for a lot of them for probably 15 years, the same ones over and over, and the houses. Maybe the publicists have changed, but the publishing houses are the same. So I've dealt with them, so I know I'm going to only get good stuff, and I'm open, and I know. But I think, and I'm so grateful that you decided to do this. Now, your book is called Yoga and the 5 Elements. Now, what are the 5 elements? And why did you choose that title?
Yeah, another good question, Natalie.
I'm really good for questions. Yes.
Indeed. So the 5 elements, in the way I look at this, is the 5 great macrocosmic elements, which are earth, water, air, fire, and space. And those 5 elements that we see around us are also within us. And yoga, if we think of yoga as a process of unfolding and accessing these higher states, these higher levels of our being, and coming into deeper alignment with ourselves, one of the ways that we can do that is to look at the energies that surround us and are in us. And I think of the 5 elements as being one of those energies, and the symbols that they represent as a way of to go back to what we were saying before about self-development, looking inward and getting closer to knowing ourselves more deeply by working through these energies of the elements. And the elements themselves relate to what are called subtle bodies, which I was saying before earlier. These subtle bodies are vehicles of consciousness. So we're more than a physical body. We're also subtle energy or subtle bodies. Some people might be more familiar with a term like the human energy field or an aura. These are all just different ways of expressing that we're, subtle energy, and that actually what we are as essence is energy. And when we're in alignment, when our energies are balanced, and so when we balance the 5 elements, we come into this place of deeper inner peace and inner harmony. And that's the message. So the spiritual wisdom for everyday living is really about tuning into the wisdom of the elements, tuning into the messages, being able to meet the needs of these different levels of our being and experience fulfillment. So balancing the elements was it's just a framework for looking at how you can do that in yourself. And I believe that when we're in more balance with ourselves, we can be also more open, more curious. Those are things I heard you describe about your approach to having people on your show, that curiosity and that openness to learning. And then we can also be more compassionate and more kind and more tolerant. And I think for me that's the goal is in being of service is coming into that inner peace and that inner harmony.
Well, I'm going to tell everybody they need to go to your site because the book cover, I always look at covers because they're important because they speak, even the words that are on the book, but the colors, the images, I feel them. It's a white background. It's got a beautiful shades of a yellow, golden color, and there's like a ruby color, and then there's a green in there. Now, in your book, you offer practical examples and exercises, okay, for people. Okay, so tell us one of those exercises. What if I got the book? What would be the first thing I should do? Should I do maybe one of the exercises and try it? And is that an actual yoga exercise that you tell about in your book?
So you can read the book. Yes, you can read the book cover to cover, first page to last page in that order, or you can jump around. For the most part. Each chapter really kind of stands alone, but they do build on each other. So as far as, how you approach doing a practice, each practice comes really at the end of the outline of that particular element, that subtle body, and what the needs are that you're working with. And, in terms of a practice, so for example, today, what we've been talking about a lot actually happens to be about mindfulness and meditation and the breath. So one of the practices I talk about in the book is about how to see your mind as a calm, clear lake. And what the practice is teaching when we're able to do that is how to disengage with the habit of thinking, right? The mind is always thinking. There's no way to get rid of your thoughts. That's a misconception, but rather we are able to actually disengage from the thinking mind. Mm-hmm. And if we imagine a lake, our thoughts are like the sand or the sediment. That when that settles to the bottom of the lake, our mind is like the still, clear water that's calm on the surface and undisturbed. And so those thoughts have settled to the bottom. And when we can do that, we enter a state of mind that's equipoise or equanimity. And when you were talking about being able to talk to different people on your show and meeting different people and learning different things, part of that is coming from a place of like non-judgmental awareness, being open, being curious. And we develop that. It's like a muscle. We can develop that capacity for non-judgment, which is equanimity, through a meditative practice. So that's one of the exercises that I recommend in the book. Not necessarily the first one that you can do, but it is one that's there.
But it's important. I mean, if you really want to learn about yoga and even practice it, I mean, that's an excellent book. But, I'm thinking about the first show that I did. You're saying how comfortable and how open for me. I was not like that in the beginning. Now, we're talking 300 and some shows ago. It was on Valentine's Day, and the girls that worked on my site, oh, Natalie, you'll be so good at this. Oh, and I said, no, I don't want to do this. What am I going to say? What am I going to ask? And so it started for me because this man that worked for me had all these people that he knew that would be great guests. So he got them to come on my show. There was probably 5 or 6 of them in a row, each week. And I found myself, in the beginning, I thought, maybe I should take notes because I would get a little info sheet on them or their bio or something. I thought, maybe I should do that. No, I don't even think I ever did that. All of a sudden, because I found in my niche is what I did, all of a sudden I was talking to them like I'd known them for years. Like, I mean, there was no hesitation. The questions came out of me, and they answered. But you see, in the beginning, it was not like that for me. It was a scary thing. And so maybe people need to realize that sometimes it's okay to be a little afraid of trying something new. Because if it's come to you, I always think of them as doors that are opening. You know, I'll when I talk to God in the morning, give me the doors, show me the doors, and, you know, I'll walk through it. If it's not good, I'll walk back out and slam the door. I will not. I'm a good judgment of things, and I'm not going to do something stupid. So just all I need are the doors open. That's how Natalie operates. And I think the show allowed me to develop speaking, allowed me to, I mean, because sometimes you'll say, well, that's a great question. Well, I don't know where the questions come from. They just come, but they're coming through another source for me. And so if you can, and for the listeners, if you can open yourself up to something new, even though it's scary, oh, I can't do this. That's how I thought. I can't do this. Well, look at, I've been doing it for 12 years now. And I'm still, I mean, I'm booked until February. But each person like yourself, Nicole, each person I look forward to, oh, yeah, I have a bio. I get a bio. I look at the picture. And by the way, my gal is doing a video on YouTube for you, and I'll send you the link. We do all my shows now, and we put them on my YouTube channel. And the views that you'll get will be phenomenal because people like to know about people. They want to see, you know, maybe I can do this. Maybe, and that's part of why I do what I do is I want people listening to know maybe you too can write a book. Maybe it'll be a workbook. Maybe it'll be a coloring book. Maybe, you know what I'm saying? But this opens their mind when they listen to the show. And if I didn't do this, just think of all the people who would not know who you are.
Right.
This expands it, and it just makes me feel so good because I, you know, before, like I said, before you come on the show, I do read a little bit, but I don't read a lot. I have a gal that does the whole bio for me. She goes and looks up your website and all of this, and I'll say to her, don't knock yourself out because I really don't read it. It's just for my show page. And she said, well, what do you do? And I said, I just talk. We talk back and forth, and that's the truth, Nicole. I don't need to know. I just need to know what you've done, your book, and yeah, a little bit where you're from, and that's it. And I run with it. So everybody out there can do new things, and this and do yoga. I mean, I'm going to go back to it. I feel that when I'm talking to you, I feel this. You know, it's going back into the time when I did it so well. Even though it was not a very long time, I could probably touch back with it again. And I think it just helps you. It grounds you. It makes you realize that there is so much more that you don't even know about. And I'm so glad you wrote this book because I had another lady on who did a book on yoga, many years ago now, because we're talking years since I've been doing all this. But you have touched on so many great things and it's open awareness. Be open. Be open. Don't be closed, because once you're closed, you're going to judge everything that comes across your desk, comes across your life. You're going to be too judgmental, and to be that way is not a good thing. And you know, I honor you. I really do. It's been great to have you on my show. And you know, I say this to a lot of people, but everybody that comes on my show, it's been wonderful. Like you, they've been able to tell how they got started. Yeah, she was just a girl growing up, just like you and I, my listeners. But look what she did. You see, because she had a desire to learn something and to do something. And your book is not out yet, is it? It comes out in December, is that right?
Yes, you can. It's pre-order currently, but it will come out officially on December 1st.
Yeah, I'm sure it's everywhere, on Amazon and all the places like that, you know. And the nice thing, and you know what, I always say this to my authors, so you're my author, is that the nice thing is they still make books. I don't ever do audio. I don't. I have to hold the book. I have to feel the pages. I have to feel the cover. It's very important to me because you have to remember, knowledge is power. And if you hold that book, if you hold her book, Nicole's book, in your hands, and you get this wonderful feeling of calmness and serenity, just imagine what's inside. So the cover has to feel good for me. This is just me. It has to look nice, appealing, soft, and gentle. Although I have to tell you, I read Stephen King's book, Fairy Tale, and I knew what it was about. And I read the thing. It's a big book, but it was fascinating. I was trying to find a way maybe that I could write mine, only mine is not a dark fairy tale. Mine is a man and a woman, and it would be for younger people to feel good that, yes, there is somebody there. Or maybe there isn't, or maybe you found somebody. Like, I don't have anybody in my life. My husband passed away 12 years ago. Am I sad about it? Yes, but I don't like what he became. It wasn't good for me. But do I think there's somebody else? Probably not. I really don't. I think, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, because sometimes I'll question, and that's another thing. Ask questions. Don't be like for you and I, how we've talked back and forth. It's just been such a wonderful conversation. Now, there's somebody that called in. I don't know if you want to take this call in. Hold on. We have time. Let me see here. How much time do I have left? Well, I have to extend it. Hold on a minute. So this listener, hold on, and let me extend the time just a little bit so you can talk. I mean, maybe she's got something that she wants to know about yoga. I'm hoping, right? Let's save it.
Okay.
And that'll be great. Okay, we can go. Okay, so hold on and let's see here.
Hi, I'm sorry. I read the title and I thought you guys were doing readings. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, because we used to do readings. I'm sorry. This is Natalie. No, we're talking about yoga. And Nicole's beautiful book that she has, and I will be having, not to change the subject, but I will be having my readers on for readings, and you'll have to watch the show page when I do that. But thank you for calling in, and I'm sorry we are not doing those kinds of questions today.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so, and that happens because I was known for we were doing all kinds of Q&A kind of thing, and this happened last week too, because I guess they see, Stars Cast, what does that mean? What is she doing, right? But anyways, it's been wonderful talking to you. I'm so grateful. Now I want to ask you something. Why did you want to be on my show? Why did you want to be on my show?
Gosh.
Another good question.
Really what it comes down to is just being open. This is actually the first live radio show that I've done. So to what you were saying a little bit ago about trying new things.
There you go.
And that you have a show for your listener that invites them to
appealing.
Sort of hear
it was something you wanted to
from
try.
Other people. Well, more than that, it's just open to learning, and I'm learning about what it means to be meeting different people and being asked different questions, and being open and curious, and being on a live radio show. That's a first for me, and stepping through. You've kind of touched on when you started your show, not knowing, and we all have a natural experience the human emotion of fear, and the only way I've learned to overcome fear is to step through it. And I'm not talking about the fear of, am I going to fall off a cliff or a building, or things that you would have rational fear over.
That's the physical fear of or drowning, or that's different. It's different than talking and doing what we do. And I had a motivational, he's a good friend of mine, a motivational speaker on. I had him 3 times on my show. And I said to him, we were talking, and he was doing all these lectures. I said, oh, gosh, I could never do that. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, I could never be in front of people and talk. He said, well, I've talked to you 2 other times. I'm going to tell you what I've observed with you. He said, you would go and put on a different pair of shoes on that stage, and you'd start to talk, and you wouldn't stop. He said, because you have that ability. You just don't think. He says, look what you're doing now. I said, oh, but in front of people, I would be scared. I would be afraid. He said, oh, I bet you won't. You wouldn't, rather, he said. It would take you probably all of 5 minutes, and you'd ask for questions, and then you'd be off running, and you'd love it, and you'd want to do more and more. Now, you talk on show, you do lectures and stuff, don't you?
Yes, I do. I teach workshops. I teach them online. I teach.
Well, what's that like?
Online,
was that scary for you the first time? For those that are listening and saying, "Oh gosh, Natalie is so right," I hated doing oral reports in front of the class. I mean, if I don't. That was a fear. You see all these people looking at you. Oh my God, what are they thinking? Am I going to make a mistake? Is my hair sticking up, or something stupid? Really, it's really dumb. But I guess when you have a fear like that, you should just try. He said, I would get you in front of 3 people, and then I put you in front of 10. Then I put you in front of 20. And he said, then I put you in front of 100. You would do well. I said, well, my heart would be racing so fast. I don't know, but this is my place of I feel good here talking to people on the phone, and that's why I do phone readings. We have chat on the site. Somebody wants a reading. I said I only do phone because you'll get more out of my voice than you will from my typing. Not that I can't type, but you know what I'm saying. But how did you break through that fear of your first talk that you had to, oh, gosh, I got to talk, I got to be in front of people. What do I do? Did you feel like that?
Sure. I mean, like you said about being in school, I remember being terrified and, really concerned and worried about performing. And what I've eventually learned and what I'm realizing more and more is that part of the fear is tied to worrying about what other people will think.
Yeah.
And when we worry about what other people will think, we step outside of ourselves. And the more we can stay connected to ourselves, the more we can stay in tune with what we're here to do, which, is to be of service and to uplift other people. In my case, I'm, teaching.
Yeah.
And really not worry about what other people will think, because we can't be all things to all people. And to step into the situation, right? Because more often than not, a lot of the fear that we're talking about in this situation it's often kind of irrational fear. It's the kind of fear of, am I dressed okay? Will I sound okay? Will my voice carry? We eventually get over those things as we step into the moment and embrace what I think of as an opportunity. So being like here, interviewed with you, and our conversation is an opportunity to step into something new. So for me, it was a process. It wasn't, and like you were saying, when you started your show, it wasn't something that you thought you could do in the beginning necessarily.
No,
and, the more we let it unfold, we're trying, we're experimenting, and we're experiencing, and it's a process. It's just a gradual process of trying something out, and it's okay to experiment, and it's okay to try something. And the first time we do something, it's going to be messy. It's not going to be perfect. And I joke sometimes that I'm a recovering perfectionist, because perfection is...
That's good. I got to remember that one.
It's the antithesis to growth. It's really the antithesis to experience. And so letting go of perfection and just letting yourself be in the experience to try something. I think we're in a culture right now that very much is almost opposed to just learning, like everything has to be perfect and somehow buttoned up, and that's really not the case. Because if we think about our experience in childhood, we're always learning and we're always experimenting. And it's amazing, if we can approach life with more of that uninhibited curiosity, the less fear can have a hold on us.
Were you nervous when I answered your call? I mean, did you think it was going to be difficult to talk live? Or you didn't think about it? I've done a couple of interviews that have been recorded, and so this is the first time I've done one live and on a radio show. So the word I would use is exposure. I've been sort of exposing myself to the experience of meeting other people and being asked questions in this kind of conversation, and I'm getting a little bit more used to it. So there was a little bit of nervousness, sure, at the beginning, and I think that's natural. Right.
But as soon as you picked up the phone and we started to talk, and also because I think of who you are and your approach, I was immediately kind of put at ease. And
Good.
I just stopped thinking about the fear, and here we are. We're in the moment.
And just talk. That's all you do is talk.
Yeah.
That's why, I have questions always before me that Jackie sets up for me, but sometimes she's like such a perfectionist. I said, don't do that. I don't need them. I really don't. Because, I've had somebody on my show for 2 hours. It's just, I bring out more from you, and I'm so happy you decided to do this. Because, see, now the next one is going to be a piece of cake. It's going to be easy if you do another live show. Yes. It's easy. Now I have fears like being in front of a camera or on a stage. That's for me. That's one of my fears. So, but I don't foresee that happening for me. Of course, you can never say never. I had a girlfriend that said, never say never, because that's when it's going to land in your lap. But I don't like doing a script. Sometimes when I would be on a radio show, I'd have a list of questions. Well, when did you first become psychic? When did you first become an astrologer? I don't like stuff like that. I would just rather talk. And I had to do a commercial. You're going to find this interesting. And the gal that worked with me, and we became great friends, she's the one whose commercial you hear when we start the show, Kim. And, we're talking. She said, well, how do you want to do this? I said, well, I don't know. I've never done this before. Okay, so we talked a little bit, and she said, okay, how about I'll just ask you a question, and then you just run with it. You just take off. And that's exactly what happened, because I started as an astrologer. Well, that was easy. That door opened up, and pretty soon, I started telling how I got into this and then what I did over here. And she was laughing at the end, and she says, she said, we could have gone 2 hours. And I said, I know. I didn't realize. But as soon as you get a little bit comfy and you realize she wasn't critiquing me. She didn't say, oh, that was horrible. No. And then my best friend listened to it. And she said, what I liked about you talking, she says, of course, you're my best friend, is that you didn't go, She said it was like nonstop talking for you. But she said, I don't think I could do that. I said, oh, yes, you could. She said, no, I don't think so. I listened to you. And she said, it was awesome. So that gave me encouragement, too. And that was like, I don't know how many years ago. I guess, the show is 12. Probably 12 years ago, maybe 11 years ago, something like that. We started talking, and I started doing shows. I started doing my own little bits on radio shows and stuff. But I don't find that something that I really want to do. But you were right on target. You did really great. And I'm glad I got to ask you good questions, because that's another thing you have to be concerned with, is that am I going to ask the right question of her? Am I going to – but you see, it just evolved, and that's the beauty of it. Mm-hmm. And I loved it.
Absolutely.
And you're awesome.
Likewise. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Natalie. Likewise. It's been wonderful.
Yes, and what I'm going to do
this.
now is I'm going to ask you, not on the well, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to write to you because I'd like to put something from your book in my next issue of the magazine, because when I do that, I take the radio show and put the link there so they can link back. I will send you the link, but I will also send you, probably not till tomorrow, my gal will put it all together, an actual video of the show. You'll be able to hear us.
Wonderful.
And she does
Wonderful.
slides. You'll be able to go to my channel on YouTube, and she does these beautiful slides and it's amazing. It's just amazing. And you can always send people, here, go listen to my show. So, yes, it's fun. And you've been wonderful, and I appreciate you. And I love all the things that you do, because you touch back on things that I did when I was probably, 20-some years old, I think. And it was a great time, great experience for me. So you have an awesome day.
Wonderful.
And look for me to email you. Maybe not till later or tomorrow. We have time. And just put something together, and let's get you out there again in the magazine. And because it'll be the December issue. And I'm going to touch base with everybody for the January one. That'll be sometime in December, because I want that to be a really big one. And after all, that's when your book is out. So we want to do more for you then.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay,
Natalie,
you have an awesome day. And thank you, everybody, for listening. This is all going to be recorded. This is recorded, and I'm going to put it out as soon as they'll give me a notice. And I want to end my show like I always do, and I think Nicole will appreciate that. This is that believe in things you cannot see. They really are there. And with that, I'll say goodbye, and I will not see you next week because it's Thanksgiving, and I'm probably cooking. But I will see you the following Wednesday at 1 p.m. So watch for my show page. Thank you, and have a wonderful day, and know that you are all loved. Bye-bye. Bye, Nicole. Thank you.
Bye, Natalie. Thank you.